There's a version of this video that would tell you Airbnb is passive income, that you can list your property, hire a cleaner, and collect money while you sleep. That version would be misleading you. Airbnb income is real. The numbers can be meaningful. And for the right property, in the right market, run by the right person, it can be one of the better cash flow opportunities available to a regular property owner. But it is not passive. It is a small hospitality business. And most people who try it underestimate the work by 2 to 3 times. So today, I want to show you how this actually works. If you already own a property and are thinking about listing it, the real numbers, the real workload, and the 3 questions that determine whether this makes sense for you or turns into an expensive lesson. Let me start with who this is for. If you already own a property, a second home, an inherited place, a guest house, or even your primary residence part of the year, this applies to you. If you're thinking about buying a property just to Airbnb it, that's a different decision with much more risk. I'm not going to encourage that here. Because when you already own the asset, your downside is bounded. The question is simple: is the income worth the work? Let's start with the numbers. What you'll usually hear is gross revenue, what the guest paid. That number is misleading because it's not what you keep. Take a $1,000 booking. Supplies, all the small things guests use, about 5%, $820. Utilities, higher than you think. Guests don't conserve, 10%, $720. Maintenance and replacement. This is where most people get it wrong. Things wear out faster than you expect. Another 10%, $620. Insurance. Short-term rental coverage costs more. 5%, $570. Local taxes, another 5%, about $520. About $520. You get the pattern. Every line item takes a bite. That $1,000 booking becomes roughly $500 to you. And that's in a good month. We haven't talked about your time yet. That 50% margin is actually solid for a small business, but it's half of what gross revenue suggests. So when someone says they make $60,000 a year on Airbnb, they probably keep about 30. $100,000? They keep about 50. Still real money, just not what it sounds like. Now let's talk about the work. A single property takes about 5 to 15 hours a week, sometimes more. Guest communication. Messages before booking, after booking, during the stay, after checkout. Cleaning coordination. Scheduling, confirming, backups when someone cancels. Sometimes doing it yourself. Maintenance. Things break, often at inconvenient times. Pricing and listing management. Prices change constantly. Events, seasons, demand. Add it up. And this is a part-time job, with margins better than most part-time jobs, but worse than people pretend. So here's how you decide if it's worth it. 3 questions. You need yes on all 3. First, is it legally stable where you are? Regulation is tightening, not loosening. You don't control the rule book. And the rule book is changing. Check your specific jurisdiction before you invest anything. The rules in your city today may not be the rules in 2 years. Second, do you actually want this kind of work? Not the income, the work. If dealing with guests sounds draining now, it will be worse 6 months in. Third, can you afford to be wrong? A slow year, unexpected costs, upfront setup, typically $15,000 to $50,000 depending on the property. Upfront setup. If you're depending on this income immediately, you're taking real risk. If you can't say yes to all 3, this probably isn't the right move. And there's one comparison most people get wrong. They compare Airbnb income to zero. That's not the alternative, and they're minimal. The real comparison is Airbnb versus long-term rent. And for many properties, long-term rent gets you 70 to 80% of the income with a fraction of the work. That's a lot of time back, A lot of stress avoided. If Airbnb only beats long-term rent by 15 or 20%, it's probably not worth it. The premium has to justify the workload, and often it doesn't. So run the real comparison, not Airbnb versus zero, Airbnb versus your next best option. Because Airbnb isn't passive income, it's active ownership with better margins. The income is real, the work is real, and the gap between the two is the entire decision. If you've hosted or decided not to, I'm curious. What did you learn? What would you tell someone thinking about listing their place right now? The best insights on this topic don't come from theory. They come from people who've actually done it. I read every comment,